To prevent the outbreak of another succession war that could break the Anorum apart, Tyrannus decreed the dynastic lade, the orderly transfer of power from the imperial monarchy of the Anorum Tyrannus to a new federation of noble states. When he passed away, his successor, Calendula, worked with her advisors to construct an electoral system that could function in rough synchronicity across the concern. This eventually formed the nameless houses, each of which were single world states on their own, that later became the major houses. To make it clear, the major houses are not hereditary noble houses at all. If anything, hereditary monarchy seemed to be going out of fashion centuries ago, and meritocratic succession was pushed in to significantly reduce the number of regicide occurring in baronic space, but of course, the successions are limited to nobles, except for the republican houses. Each major house holds sovereign power over their worlds, managing and administering all facets of civil life from policing to infrastructure building, public health care and education, and so on, while ultimately subordinate to the federal karakin monarchy in interstellar and interplanetary matters. Major houses reign supreme on their own worlds. This series will be talking about each of the existing major houses, including the House of Promise that's still currently being enrolled. House of Smoke, Federalist, on the shoulders of giants. Once a terrestrial base for the gas miners of Iolet 1, a gas giant, Iolet A was gifted to a union of ignoble laborers given rank and title during the Hypothecalian period. As the Anorum fell apart, breakaway movements on Iolet A fought bitterly against the Anorate Guard units stationed there, eventually escalating to an interstellar conflict in which the Independence fighters made good with their threat to fling an asteroid at Karakis, plunging the world into a years-long cycle of shock winters and king tides. For this, Iolet A suffered terribly under the Anorum Tyrannus, becoming little more than a prison world for dissidents, remnant Anorate Guard, and others deemed criminal by the new Anno. Even so, the newly minted nobility of Tyrannus's reign and the few lines native to Iolet A carried on the business of making a home from lunar rock. In the thousands of years after the dynastic lade, Iolet A evolved from hardscrabble moon to massively reworked terraforming project, with planned hydrologic systems, atmosphere domes, and raw earth habitable canyons. Construction of the House of Smoke's inverted tower, a deep plunging hollow core tower, began and was finished during this time, home to 30 million souls as of now. The inverted tower also houses most cutting-edge research into homunculi, thanatologic reconstruction, and other more uncanny sciences. Following the dynastic lade, the House of Smoke worked to establish itself in the hearts and minds of the people who suddenly found themselves a part of it. Its leaders implemented a strong campaign of granting titles to promising ignoble candidates, endearing the House of Smoke to the population. Such an effort has been attempted once more since the First Interest War, when the House of Smoke sought to formally recognize trade and diplomatic relationships that many of its minor houses had established with powerful clans on Spar, and as a result, Iolet A is one of the few places in the baronies where non-baronic citizens and Spari immigrants have been ennobled and now manage their own minor houses. The House of Smoke remains a federalist house, long reformed from its earlier rebelliousness. However, its unique history has seen it leaning more and more toward republicanism, with several strong abolitionist minor houses on the verge of forming a coalition, and resistance fading within the house's more conservative demographics. This trend is deeply worrying to the hagiographers, especially the House of Sand, which is rumored to be running a campaign of deep social manipulation targeted at vulnerable or suggestible noble youth. The House of Smoke lists its population as just under 2 billion souls, with a noble class composing around 2% of its total population. Its notable minor houses include House Dufford, House Reyes, House Bilal, and House Cowrie, an old and successful Spari house ennobled only a few centuries ago. House of Remembrance, liberal, the oak bends but does not break. On Arudyi, the moon of Karakis, the House of Remembrance oversees one of the most densely populated worlds in the galaxy. Historically, Remembrance specialized in forestry, but that has long since sunk into irrelevance. An old world, Arudyi is not technically an ecumenopolis, as the house has worked to maintain very carefully planned green spaces, natural parks, and breathing rooms, but it is certainly the next closest thing, with a population of 2 billion souls on a moon only 6,500 kilometers in diameter. Green spaces at a premium, those blocks bordering even vertical green space are widely sought after. Remembrance's world, it is often remarked by baronic commentators, runs deep. Founded by Anaxandron, Passacalia I's brother, the history of Arodi has been buried in its earth and under its megacity. Its carefully layered and curated architecture has been built upward over time into a stretching vertical landscape of stone balconies, gargoyles, buttresses, domes, and pillared canopies. It is a striking, even beautiful site, one that narrowly avoids the unfettered urban blight so hated by its designers. Even then, in the deepest parts of its metro swaths, the density of the built environment is so great that raw earth is precious, as is natural light. The lower levels must be lit with artificial lights during the morning and evening hours to ensure substrate populations receive sufficient UV exposure. The depth of Aruthi is more than literal. The histories of the minor houses of the House of Remembrance stretch back to the very foundation of Karakis, as do their passions, cruelties, secrets, crimes, plans, and projects. The nobility of Aruthi's involvement in courtly matters on Karakis has always outsized the world's martial capacity. In its grand archive, the House of Remembrance keeps the oldest continuous records of Karakin civilization dating back to Pasacalian times, a matter that sometimes brings the house into conflict with the augurs of the Xenoglossary. The house's careful hiding of vital texts and mythohistories during tyrannous Contrapatram is especially noteworthy, and it holds precious some of the only surviving and unaltered records of ancient Karakin history. The House of Remembrance, seeking new territory, has relocated many of its younger minor houses and eager populations to its holding in the Dawn Line Shore, DS10, or as Remembrance calls it, Crossland. Aruthi is blanketed with propaganda urging ignobles and unland nobles to seek a new life on the New World. The population has responded with vigor and enthusiasm, and now colonial land charter services and work placement programs are just as busy shipping eager new colonists to Crossland as the facilities on Crossland are to receive them. The House of Remembrance's current ruler is Decade Lord Alexander Aaron Bent, Patriarch of House Alexander. House Alexander also controls the Crimson Memory, Remembrance's house company. House Alexander, and by extension, most of the powerful minor houses that make up the House of Remembrance, is the barony's lone liberal house. Around 3% of Remembrance's population, spread across Aruthi and Crossland, are nobles. Hello there. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.